Most speakers make a huge mistake. They give a speech that gets applause, but not a paycheck. So if you want to turn your keynote into a business, not a hobby, you need to understand the difference between just inspiring people and actually getting paid to speak. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to craft a keynote that meeting planners want to pay for. And it's using what I call my transformational triangle. It's a framework that'll teach you how I develop keynotes. It's a proven process of structure, something that allows you to book more stages and do a better job. So I'm going to go to my board. I'm going to teach you, but let's dive into this right now. Now, the biggest key, we'll call it piece to all this, is that as you're going through the structure, developing an amazing keynote, you have to make sure you're looking at these three pieces. Now, the first one is most speakers make the mistake of thinking they get hired because they're going to be out there and really just being motivational. Your job isn't just to be motivational. Your job is to teach some things. And as we go through this, I'm going to make sure you get this clear. But the first thing is your job is to transform, right? Now, when I look at me saying I'm going to transform somebody, it's not me going out here and going like, hey, I just want an inspirational talk and I want to make you feel good about yourself. Yeah, you feeling good is a great first step. But the bigger step for the audience member who's sitting there is, can they walk out of that room different? Or at least with something that's catalyzed their mentality to do something different or do it in a different manner. And so your job is to transform the audience, which means you have to do more than just inspire. See, a lot of when we're out there on the stage and we're inspiring and telling them what they can do, and we get all amped up and our voice inflects and makes them feel something, they've got to actually have this internal part of their brain that goes, yeah, I believe I can do that. If you don't let someone flip the switch from I can't do this to man, I can do this, you haven't transformed them. You've done what everybody else has done and made them feel great. They're going to walk out of that room with a little bit of energy, and then a day, 2 days, 3 days from now, it's gone out the window. If you really want to be a person that is a long term speaker that can charge a high amount, go beyond the inspiration by teaching and breaking myths and unpacking ideas, if you can, in story and parables that opens their mind to what's now possible more than what they thought when they first sat down in that seat. So the biggest thing is make sure you're not just doing that through inspiration, but transformation. The way you do it, here's a big piece of it, is through what we call storytelling, right? Storytelling is big, and most people, golly, did they drop the ball here? Because what they do is they try to just go out there and state stories, not tell stories, right? Think about this. When I talk about transforming somebody and you want to transform a life, you can't just be in a position of going like, I'm gonna go out there and tell them. At one point when I was, a kid, I got tired of how bad things were in life, and I decided I'm gonna go be successful. And I fought real hard to be successful. I just stated a story to you. There's nothing sexy about that. There's nothing nuanced about that. In fact, you're probably sitting here right now going, okay, and? But what if I tell you like this? I was 15 years old and I found myself in this classroom, Mr. Howe's classroom. I was in the back right corner in a brown desk with a black jacket over my head, half asleep, eating a baggie of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. On my right side, without them knowing, was two girls that I was listening to have this conversation. Now, at this moment in time, I had gone through a journey of 11 years in a foster care system, adopted by a very poor all white family, and I thought I was not supposed to do anything or have anything great in life. In fact, for 2 years, I'd played football and realized that for me, it wasn't a game I was good at. The skill set wasn't there, but I had this big, deep love for it. And I checked out. I was like, you know what? Life's not going to be great for me. But these two girls were talking, and one girl says to the other girl, the reason I'm so bad is because I'm in foster care. And it literally woke me up because I had this thought of like, that sounds horrible. Like, how's that going to be my excuse for the rest of my life as to why I'm not successful? This moment I had no control over. And I had this thought of like, I want to be great at something. And that moment sent me home with this stirring. And I stood up in front of a mirror, looked myself right in my pupils, and I said, Anthony, you're going to be great. And that was it. It sounds funny that it's that simple, but that one moment was a commitment to myself that I'd never made prior to that. And I didn't want to let me down. So what I did is I started looking at what are the things that are limiting me from having a success I want? Where do I have to build habits and patterns? What do I have to do new to get something new in my life? And that moment in time made me realize that my separation from what I wanted wasn't what I had now, but what I could go out and get in my life. And I did that. Played college, NFL, right? The story goes on. But that's how you transform, through telling a story, not simply stating the story. So you got to get good at storytelling, not story stating. It's a big separation. The second thing is what I will call and do call My transformational triangle, transformational, if I can get this long word, why is it so long? Triangle. Now, here is how this thing works. I'll make a little triangle here for you so you can see it on the board. And here's how a transformational triangle works. There's going to be three segments that matter deeply to this. The first one is you must get to a point of having emotional connection. Now, why emotional connection? Because emotions are what move people. Right? Emotion is what gets me to feel like I'm engaged and feel like I'm brought in. And if you do it properly when you're telling a story, you can trigger the emotions by triggering the senses: taste, touch, smell, sight, sound, all these things that matter. And why is that important? When I tell a story, I want to bring you into the color of it. That's why I told you I had a black parka. I was across the room. There was these two girls on a chair. I was looking in a mirror. I'm giving you visuals that put your senses into the story. So now you can actually feel and emote with me. Emotions are movers. I think about it when people go to buy something, people will typically buy with emotion and justify with logic. We move as with emotion. We're emotional beings. You have an emotion right now. Listen to me. You may like me, may dislike me. You may want to go faster, and maybe I got to slow down my speech. But at the end of the day, there's an emotion that's always being elicited by you, and your job is to tap into the emotions to move the audience. The next thing is you have to have a strategic framework. Now, why is this important? Well, if I'm giving you a story that sounds great, I have to be able to tell you how you can step by step make the same transformation. See, at this stage here, I'm focused on transforming you. At this stage, I'm going, I want to open you up, right, to make you think something's possible. But then I want to give you a process that allows you yourself to make the transformation. If I do this properly, you'll know I got step one is here, then I got to do step two, then I got to do step three, or step four, or step 70. Who knows what it is? But you must have a process that unpacks the way to make that happen for someone listening to you speak. The last portion of this needs to be clear takeaways. Now, why clear takeaways and what's the difference? Well, over here, I'm giving you a framework of what to process. The takeaways are different because the takeaway is giving you one very, very specific, or maybe two very specific things that you can take away and do two things with. One, you can digest and embody and simplistically follow along. Right? If you think about it, when we're living our day, sometimes it's that one quote or a single statement or a couple words that just get you moving, right? Just was live strong was, one thing we all these live strong bands, live strong. It's a clear takeaway, right? It's an embodiment of the language and the message that allows me to take it away and always refer back to it without losing sight of what it was. So it's got to be clear for that reason. The second reason is I need you to be so clear about what it is, you can pass it on to somebody else without me being present as a speaker. Meaning you go home and you're getting your life going, and somebody goes, how in the world did you develop this great success? And you can turn to them and go, this. I do dark work. It's my brand. And then the idea is if I have something clear, I can communicate it with somebody. And I can also absorb it. If it's unclear, right? Opposite of clear is unclear. I don't even know how to remember it or desire to connect to it again. I lose sight of it when I walk out of the room. And then I also can't tell somebody else about it. So there's no spiderweb growth of your success ongoing with your speaking business. The goal is to have this in place so now you can step out and deliver a message that has legs of its own well beyond your time on stage. That's a big piece. Now, the third thing is when it comes down to it, you want to make sure you're focused on three, which is real examples, not just fake ones. And what I like to do is call it 80/20. Now, 80/20 is a way that I structure my keynotes, and I'm going to tell you how this all works. But I want real examples, and a way that I give real examples is this: 80/20 is a structure of a keynote that is 80% the same, 20% different, but it fits the audience you're speaking to like a 100% custom speech. And what I mean by that? Well, if you go to an audience and they hear you say something that they know at the end of the day that you've said a million times, they're going to feel like you're not connected to them. They're not going to listen to you and they're not going to transform. But if you can go into a speech, into a room, and deliver a keynote that has 80% the same stories, but has 20% the right 20% changed, then what happens is it feels like a custom speech to them. Now, here's why I say real examples. Whenever I'm delivering that 20%, it needs to be real examples for the audience, for the people you're talking to. Or if I'm talking to a group of, let's say, executives, and I start talking about examples and stories and stuff that have to do with professional football, like when I played, I'm going to lose them. If it's something that's not a cool story that benefits them, I'm going to lose them. But imagine if I have a conversation about me being a CEO of my companies and what I went through and my team, they're going to go, man, this guy gets us. He understands who we are. That's what you want to have take place in the heads and the hearts of the people you're talking to. You want to make sure you're giving them a real example that fits their real life experience. So 80% of your keynote, yes, it's the same, but you just that perfect 20%, it's going to feel like a very custom speech with real examples that pertain to their life experience. And now, not only they had this transformational skill of you telling their open their hearts for, you've gone through this process properly, you're hitting them at the heart point and the head point, you're a highly valuable speaker to anybody who wants to book you. So for me, as I think through that stuff and I come on back to this little spot here, I want you to think about these pieces. Like, are you in fact going through and getting these things dialed in? Are you locking in your transformational triangle? Because with these things in place, you can move your keynote business as fast forward as you want, or it can go as slow as you want. It's up to you. But I want you to start thinking about this. And for me, if you're seriously in a position where you're like, hey, I want to turn my speaking kind of hobby into a speaking business, then you need to be focused on these pieces. You don't need just more applause, you need more engagement and more transformation. You need a keynote that sells. So here's what you can do next. Drop a comment below this video with your biggest keynote challenge. And I'll personally respond to this and I'll give you a couple tips on how you can work some of these things in. Also, hit subscribe and turn on your notifications because I give a ton more, we'll call it insider strategies that'll be coming to you every single week because I believe that it's great for the world to give back to the world from experience. I do this, I'm an active speaker. I'll never stop speaking. I love doing it, but I realize the things I know can benefit the world that is waiting for you to get on stage in a place I'll never go because I don't know your information. I don't have your message. But if this skill set can serve you to serve others, I want to do that. So if you want more insider strategies, make sure to subscribe and we can help you take your message out to the world to change lives and change your life in the process. All right, I'll see you next video.